There's never been a better time to get into laser engraving, and Ortur is back, and they recently released the R2, and it has lots of power to take on big projects. But here's the best part. Ortur is aiming the R2 straight at first-time buyers. So is it actually beginner-friendly, or is it really just another flashy machine with the same old learning curve? I've been testing it for a while hands-on now, and in this video I'm going to show you where it shines, what you can do with it, and I'll even show you a few things that might surprise you. So let's go. Ortur had all but vanished from the laser industry a couple of years ago, but they're now recently making a resurgence, and they're bringing some modern lasers back to the market that are both powerful and easy to use for first-time buyers. The Ortur R2 is a diode laser engraver that's available as a 10 watt or 20 watt option, but there's also a 1.3 watt IR laser module that you can use if you want even more flexibility. And as a package, this means that the R2 sits in the sweet spot for home users, providing a laser that's powerful enough to cut and engrave wood, acrylic, leather, even engrave many different metals. The engraving area here is 300 by 210 millimeters, and that's plenty of space for hobby projects, or maybe you're making small signs. Now, the R2 offers a crisp tilting front display, along with built-in safety features like flame detection, tilt detection, and an emergency stop button, which is, of course, critical for beginners. The air assist is also available, and I'll talk about that as we go. And all of this sits safely inside a Class 4 enclosure that's compact enough to sit on your desk. Now, as for software, it supports both Lightburn, laser Gerbil, so whether you're using a Mac or a PC, then you're still going to be covered. You'll be able to run whatever software you choose. Okay, let's talk about setup, because for beginners, this is where most people will run off the rails. Ortur has done a pretty decent job of making this easy, because all you really need to do is take the laser out of the box. It's completely assembled, and you just plug in the power supply, connect the exhaust, and both USB cables. There's one for the laser and one for the camera. And if you're using Lightburn, you can turn on the laser and then use Lightburn's Find My Laser to configure it. Now, one caution I ran into is when I did this, Lightburn selected the wrong Gerbil driver, and it basically didn't really work, and I wasn't paying attention. So before I got this resolved, I had numerous conversations with Ortur, and we couldn't figure out what was going on. Oddly, the laser was working, but the output felt more like a 5 watt laser, especially for cutting. And after eventually deleting the device and adding it again in Lightburn, things started to work, and I was back in business. So just be careful of that. If you decide to use Ortur's phone app to control the laser, you can also set up the Wi-Fi on the front panel. It's pretty easy, and I'll show you quickly here, but I won't go through it in detail. Now, there's a couple more things to close in on here just to show you the last couple important features. The first one is the camera. Now, I don't normally use a camera, but there's one here. It's built into the cover, and you can just go into the camera control in Lightburn and select it, and you can see it works. You can go calibrate it. The other thing you can do is you can remove the plate off the bottom of the laser, and you would do this if you had maybe a rotary, and you can plug it into, there's a socket in the back. The next thing you want to know is if you're engraving, you can just place your material down on the base. But if you're cutting, they give you these triangular rails that you put on the base plate and to create some space. And I don't actually like these, because when you put material down, you can see it's like it's on ball bearings. It moves around fairly easily. So take it for what it's worth. You're probably going to want to get a honeycomb if you have an R2. Now let's look at a few tests, and as always, I use my standard test suite for this, and I did, first of all, a cut test, and it came out pretty nice. We'll look at the results here in a second. The engrave test, again, was pretty clean. Now, I run these without the air assist, so you'll see a bit of smoke. The gradient test is the one I use to determine grayscale, and then which setting I should use for engraving the dog, which I did. And I'll show you the sped up version. Now, as far as results, cutting really clean, except for that bottom extreme right, bottom right corner. Engraving, again, no air assist here. That's why you'll see a bit of smoke, but it was nice and crisp. For the gradient, I used about 12,000, seemed to be about the best for the dog, and you can see the dog photo is pretty nice here for all things considered. Keep in mind, this is just grainy old hardware store plywood. So overall, The biggest surprise I had here is the cutting. The cutting here is actually better than other 20-watt lasers I tested. And it kind of surprised me because this is supposed to be a beginner hobby laser, but it cuts really well and it also engraves fantastically. Now, before I get into some summary of the Ortur R2, I wanted to do just a couple of really quick real-world projects. And the first one was to just go to boxes.py and just generate an open top box and cut it out on the R2. The cutting here, of course, is nice and clean. And when I put this all together, very crisp, no dirt on the surfaces, and it fit together perfectly. The next thing I did was to take, in this case, an oak keychain and just engrave my logo on it because I wanted to do something a little bit deeper. And if I zoom in here, you can see the output is predictably crisp and a very good job overall. And finally, I wanted to do something that was like a 3D effect. So I actually took the head of a coin I'd been working on for a while and just engraved it on a piece of plywood. It didn't come out quite as 3D as I wanted it to, but it came out okay. And you can actually feel the texture of the surface. So all in all, I'm pretty happy. All right, so I wanted to start consolidating my notes here and let's come to some conclusion on this Ortur R2. Overall, it definitely hits the mark as a beginner laser. You can take this out of the box, it's completely assembled, and you can start working. And the barrier to actually use it is pretty low. You're probably going to have more challenges with light burn than you will with the actual laser itself. And it's just one less thing to worry about when you're getting started. Okay, so I did take the time to build up a few pros and cons here. On the pro side, safety was always first and foremost on Ortur's mind when they designed this. It's got a class 4 case, so you don't have to worry about scattered lasers, and there's all sorts of safety features both inside and outside the box. So you're not going to have to worry. It's also very easy to use as advertised. If you're a first-time user, you won't have any trouble here. And I'll call out cutting specifically. Although this is a 20-watt laser, the cutting abilities actually exceeded my expectations. It's very clean and it cuts very well. Probably the best 20-watt laser that I've seen from a cutting perspective. Now, on the con side, there were a couple things here. The first one is pretty significant. If you do plan on swapping laser modules, keep in mind that there isn't a plug on the laser module itself. It runs on a fixed cable. So when you want to switch laser modules, you literally have to cut zip ties and rerun cables to change. It's not a 10-minute job. It's more like a half-hour job. So keep that in mind if you think that you may want to use different laser modules on some jobs. There's no auto control of the air pump. They have that squeezy little clamp, which is kind of, chintzy. And when you plug in the air assist, it's on and it makes noise whether you're really using it or not. And I mentioned the triangular spacers that they provide for cutting. Throw those away and buy a honeycomb. It's just so much easier and you don't have to worry about things sliding around. Now, if this video helped you out, then please click that like button down below. It's totally free and it certainly helps me out a lot. And if you want to grab one of these Ortur R2s, I've put a link in the description down below, and please use that. That also helps out the channel. And with that, I'll wind down. I'll say get out there, make your world, and I'll see you next time.